Where are Elmer, Herman, Bert, Tom, and Charlie?
The weak of will, the strong of arm, the clown, the boozer, the fighter.
All are sleeping on the hill.
One passed in a fever.
One was burned in a mine.
One was killed in a brawl.
One died in a jail.
One fell from a bridge toiling for children and wife.
All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
Where are Ella, Kate, Mag, Lizzie, and Edith?
The tender heart, the simple soul, the loud, the proud, the happy one.
All are sleeping on the hill.
One died in shameful childbirth.
One of a thwarted love.
One at the hands of a brute in a brothel.
One of a broken pride in the search for heart's desire.
One after life in faraway London and Paris was brought to her little space by Ella and Kate and Mag.
All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
Where are Uncle Isaac and Aunt Emily?
And old Townie Kincaid and Savine Houghton.
And Major Walker, who had talked with venerable men of the Revolution. All are sleeping on the hill.
They brought them dead sons from the war.
And daughters whom life had crushed.
And their children fatherless crying.
All are sleeping, sleeping, sleeping on the hill.
To this generation, I would say, memorize some bit of verse of truth or beauty. It may serve a turn in your life. My husband had nothing to do with the fall of the bank. He was only cashier. The wreck was due to the president, Thomas Rhodes, and his vain, unscrupulous son. Yet my husband was sent to prison, and I was left with the children, to feed and clothe and school them. And I did it, and sent them forth into the world all clean and strong, and all through the wisdom of Pope, the poet. Act well your part, there all the honor lies.
Very well, you liberals and navigators into realms intellectual, you sailors through heights imaginative, blown about by erratic currents, tumbling into air pockets. You Margaret Fuller slacks, petites, and Tennessee Chaplain Shopes. You found, with all your boasted wisdom, how hard at the last it is to keep the soul from splitting into cellular atoms, while we, seekers of earth's treasures, getters and hoarders of gold, are self-contained, compact, harmonized, even to the end.
After I had attended lectures at our Chautauqua and studied French for 20 years, committing to the grammar almost by heart, I thought I'd take a trip to Paris to give my culture a final polish. So I went to Peoria for a passport. Thomas Rhodes was on the train that morning, and there the clerk of the district court made me swear to support and defend the Constitution. Yes, even me. Who couldn't defend or support it at all? And what do you think? That very next morning, the federal judge in the very room next to the room where I took the oath decided the Constitution exempted Rhodes from paying taxes for the waterworks of Spoon River.
Here lies the body of Lois Spears, born Lois Fluke, daughter of Willard Fluke, wife of Cyrus Spears, mother of Myrtle and Virgil Spears. Children with clear eyes and sound limbs. I was born blind. I was the happiest of women, as wife, mother, and housekeeper, caring for my loved ones and making my home a place of order and bounteous hospitality. For I went about the rooms and about the garden with an instinct as sure as sight, as though there were eyes in my fingertips. Glory to God in the highest.
If you in the village think that my work was a good one, who closed the saloons and stopped all playing at cards, and hailed old Daisy Fraser before Justice Arnett in many a crusade to purge the people of sin. Why do you let the milliner's daughter Dora and the worthless son of Benjamin Paintier nightly make my grave their unholy pillow?
To be able to see every side of every question, to be on every side, to be everything, to be nothing, to pervert the truth, to write it for purpose, to use great feelings and passion of the human family for base design, for cunning ends, to wear a mask like the Greek actors. Your 8-page paper behind which you huddle, brawling through the megaphone of big type, "This is I, the giant," thereby also living the life of a sneak thief, poisoned with the anonymous words of your clandestine soul, to scratch dirt over scandal for money, to exhume all the wins for revenge, or to sell papers, crushing reputations or bodies if need be, to win at any cost, to save your own life, to glory in demonic power, ditching civilization, as a paranoid boy puts a log on the track and derails the express train, to be an editor, as I was, then to lie here close by the river over the place where the sewage flows from the village, and the empty cans and garbage are dumped, and abortions are hidden.
Did you ever hear of Editor Whedon giving to the public treasury any of the money he received for supporting candidates for office? Or for writing up the canning factory to get people to invest? Or for suppressing the facts about the bank when it was rotten and ready to break? Did you ever hear of the circuit judge helping anyone except the Q Railroad or the bankers? Or did Reverend Pete or Reverend Sibley give any part of their salary, earned by keeping still or speaking out as the leaders wished them to do, to the building of the waterworks? But I, Daisy Fraser, who always passed along the streets through rows of nods and smiles, and coughs and words such as, "There she goes," never was taken before Justice Arnett without contributing $10 and costs to the school fund of Spoon River.
Passerby, to love is to find your own soul through the soul of the beloved one. When the beloved one withdraws itself from your soul, then you have lost your soul. It is written, "I have a friend, but my sorrow has no friend." Hence my long years of solitude at the home of my father, trying to get myself back, and to turn my sorrow into a supremer self. But there was my father with his sorrows, sitting under the cedar tree, a picture that sank into my heart at last, bringing infinite repose. Oh, ye souls who have made life, fragrant and white as tube roses, from earth's dark soil, eternal peace.
I have 2 monuments beside this granite obelisk. One, the house I built on the hill, with its spires, bay windows, and roof of slate. The other, the lakefront in Chicago, where the railroad keeps a switching yard, and whistling engines and crunching wheels, and smoke and soot thrown over the city, and the crash of cars along the boulevard, a blot like a hog pen on the harbor. Of a great metropolis, foul as a sty. I helped to give this heritage to generations yet unborn with my vote in the House of Representatives. And the lure of the thing was to be at rest from the never-ending fright of need, and to give my daughters gentle breeding and a sense of security in life. But you see, though I had the mansion house, and traveling passes, and the local distinction, I could hear the whispers, wherever I went, and my daughters grew up, with a look as if someone were about to strike them, and they married madly, helter-skelter, just to get out and have a change. And what was the whole of this business worth? Why, it wasn't worth a damn.
had no objection at all to selling my household effects at auction on the village square. It gave my beloved flock the chance to get something which had belonged to me for a memorial. That trunk, which was struck off to Burchard, the grog keeper. Did you know it contained the manuscripts of a lifetime of sermons? And he burned them as waste paper.
What do you see now? Globes of red, yellow, purple? Just a moment. And now? My father and mother and sisters. Yes. And now? Knights at arms, beautiful women, kind faces. Try this. A field of grain, a city. Very good. And now? A young woman with angels bending over her. A heavier lens. And now? Many women with bright eyes and open lips. Try this. Just a goblet on a table. Oh, I see. Try this lens. Just an open space. I see nothing in particular. Well, now. Pine trees? A lake? A summer sky? That's better. And now? A book. Read a page for me. I can't. My eyes are carried beyond the page. Try this lens. Depths of air. Excellent. And now? Light. Just light, making everything below it a toy world. Very well. We'll make the glasses accordingly.
I preached 4,000 sermons. I conducted 40 revivals and baptized many converts. Yet no deed of mine shines brighter in the memory of the world, and none is treasured more by me. Look how I saved the Blisses from divorce and kept the children free from that disgrace, to grow up into moral men and women, happy themselves, a credit to the village.
Dust of my dust, and dust with my dust. O child, who died as you entered the world, dead with my death, not knowing breath, though you tried so hard, with a heart that beat when you lived with me and stopped when you left me for life. It is well, my child, for you never traveled the long, long way that begins with school days, when little fingers blur under the tears that fall on crooked letters, and the earliest wound when a little mate leaves you for another, and sickness and the face of fear by the bed, the death of a father or mother, or shame for them, or poverty, the maiden sorrow of school days ended, and eyeless nature that makes you drink from the cup of love, though you know it's been poisoned. To whom would your flower face have been lifted, botanist, weakling? Cry of what blood to yours? It's blood that calls to our blood, and then your children. Oh, what might they be? And what your sorrow? Child, child! Death is better than life.
Ye, aspiring ones, listen to the story of the unknown, who lies here with no stone to mark the place. As a boy, reckless and wanton, wandering with the gun in hand through the forest, near the mansion of Aaron Hatfield, I shot a hawk perched on the top of a dead tree. Well, it fell with a guttural cry at my feet, his wing broken. Then I put him in a cage, where he lived many days cawing angrily at me when I offered him food. Daily I searched the realms of Hades for the soul of the hawk, that I may offer him the friendship of one whom life wounded and caged.
If I could have lived another year, I could have finished my flying machine and become rich and famous. Hence, it is fitting the workman who tried to chisel a dove for me made it look more like a chicken, for what it is all but being hatched and running about the yard to the day of the block, save that a man has an angel's brain and sees the acts from the first.
There would be a knock at the door, and I would arise at midnight and go to the shop, where belated travelers would hear me hammering sepulchre boards and tacking satin. Yet often I wondered who would go with me to the distant land, or named the theme for talk, in the same week, for I've observed two always go together. Chase Henry was paired with Edith Conant, and Jonathan Somers with Willie Metcalf, and Editor Hamblin with Francis Turner, when he prayed to live longer than Editor Whedon, and Thomas Rhodes with Widow McFarlane, and Emily Sparks with Barry Holden, and Oscar Hummel with Davis Matlock, and Editor Whedon with Fiddler Jones, and Faith McFeeney with Dorcas Gustine, and I, the solemnest man in town, stepped off with Daisy Fraser.
After you have enriched your soul to the highest point, with books, thought, suffering, the understanding of many personalities, the power to interpret glances, silences, the pause in momentous transformations, the genius of divination and prophecy, so that you feel able at times to hold the world in the hollow of your hand. Then, if, by the crowding of so many powers into the compass of your soul takes fire, and the conflagration of your soul, the evil of the world is lightened up and made clear. Be thankful if in that hour of supreme vision, life does not fiddle.
Maurice, weep not. I am not here under this pine tree. The balmy air of spring whispers through the sweet grass, the stars sparkle, the whippoorwill calls. But thou grievest while my soul lies rapturous in the blessed nirvana of eternal light. Go to the good heart that is my husband, who broods upon what he calls our guilty love. Tell him that my love for you, no less than my love for him, wrought out my destiny, that through the flesh I won spirit, and through the spirit, peace. There is no marriage in heaven, but there is love.
Often Anna clooped at the gate, refused me the parting kiss, saying we should be engaged before that. And just with a distant clasp of the hand, she bade me good night as I brought her home from the skating rink or the revival. No sooner did my departing footsteps die away than Lucius Atherton, so I learned when Anna went to Peoria, stole in at her window or took her riding behind his spanking team of bays into the country. The shock of it made me settle down, and I put all the money I got from my father's estate into the canning factory to get the job of head accountant, and lost it all. And then I knew I was one of life's fools, whom only death would treat as an equal of other men, making me feel like a man.
Over and over they used to ask me while buying the wine or the beer. In Peoria first, and later in Chicago, Denver, Frisco, New York, wherever I lived, how I happened to lead the life and what was the start of it. Well, I told them a silk dress, and a promise of marriage from a rich man. It was Lucius Antheron. But that was not really it at all. Suppose a boy steals an apple from the tray at the grocery store, and they all begin to call him a thief. The editor, minister, judge, and all the people. A thief, a thief, a thief, wherever he goes. And he can't get work, and he can't get bread without stealing it. Why, the boy will steal. It's the way the people regard the theft of the apple that makes the boy what he is.
When my mustache curled and my hair was black and I wore tight trousers and a diamond stud, I was an excellent knave of hearts and took many a trick. But when the gray hairs began to appear, lo, a new generation of girls laughed at me, not fearing me, and I had no more exciting adventures wherein I was all but shot for a heartless devil. But only drabby affairs, warmed over affairs of other days and other men. And time went on until I lived at Mayor's restaurant, partaking of short orders, a gray, untidy, toothless, discarded rural Don Juan. There's a mighty shade here who sings the one named Beatrice, and I see now that the force that made him great drove me to the dregs of life.
Nolt Hoheimer ran away to the war the day before Colonel Trenery swore out a warrant through Justice Arnett for stealing hogs. But that's not the reason he turned a soldier. He caught me running with Lucius Atherton. We quarreled, and I told him never again to cross my path. Then he stole the hogs and went to the war. Back of every soldier is a woman.
I was the first fruits of the Battle of Missionary Ridge. When I felt that bullet enter my heart, I wish I had stayed at home and gone to jail for stealing the hogs of Colonel Trenary instead of running away and joining the army. Rather 1,000 times to county jail than to lie under this marble figure with wings and this granite pedestal bearing the words, Pro Patria. What do they mean anyway?
Do the boys and girls still go to Seavers for a cider after school in late September, or gather hazelnuts along the thickets on Aaron Hatfield's farm where the frost begins? For many times with the laughing girls and boys played I, along the road and over the hills, when the sun was low and the air was cool, stopping to club the walnut tree, standing leafless against a flaming west. Now, the smoke of the autumn smoke and the dropping acorns and the echoes about the vales bring dreams of life. They hover over me. They question me. Where are those laughing comrades? How many are with me? How many in the old orchards along the way to Seavers and in the woods that overlook the quiet water?
I went to the dances at Chandlerville and played Snap Out at Winchester. One time we changed partners, driving home in the moonlight of middle June. And then I found Davis. We were married and lived together for 70 years, enjoying, working, raising the 12 children, 8 of whom we lost. Ere I had reached the age of 60. I spun, I wove, I kept the house, I nursed the sick. I made the garden, and for a holiday, rambled over the field where sang the larks, and by Spoon River gathering many a shell, and many a flower and medicinal weed, shouting to the wooded hills, singing to the green valleys. At 96, I had lived enough, that is all, and passed to a sweet repose. But what is this I hear of sorrow and weariness, anger, discontent, and drooping hopes? Degenerate sons and daughters, life is too strong for you. It takes life to love life.
I was the Sunday school superintendent, the dummy president of the wagon works and the canning factory, acting for Thomas Rhodes and the banking clique. My son, the cashier of the bank, wedded to Rhodes' daughter, my weekdays spent in making money, my Sundays at church and in prayer. In everything a cog in the wheel of things as they are, of money, master, and man made white with the paint of Christian creed. And then the bank collapsed. I stood and looked at the wrecked machine, the wheels with blowholes stopped with putty and painted, the rotten bolts, the broken rods, and only the hopper for souls fit to be used again, in a new devourer of life, when newspapers, judges, and money magicians build over again. I was stripped to the bone, but I lay in the Rock of Ages, seeing now through the game, no longer a dupe, and knowing the upright shall dwell in the land, but the years of the wicked shall be shortened. Then, suddenly, Dr. Myers discovered a cancer in my liver. It was not, after all, the particular care of God. Why, even thus, standing on a peak above the mists through which I had climbed, and ready for a larger life in the world, eternal forces moved me on with a push.
Out of a cell into the darkened space, the end at 25, my tongue could not speak what stirred within me, and the village thought me a fool. Yet at the start there was a clear vision, a high and urgent purpose in my soul, which drove me on trying to memorize the Cyclopedia Britannica.
When Reuben Pantier ran away and threw me, I went to Springfield. There I met a lush whose father, just deceased, left him a fortune. He married me when drunk, and my life was wretched. A year passed, and one day they found him dead. That made me rich. I moved on to Chicago. After a time met Tyler Roundtree, villain. I moved on to New York. A gray-haired magnate went mad about me, so another fortune. He died one night right in my arms, you know. I saw his purple face for years thereafter. There was almost a scandal. I moved on, this time to Paris. I was now a woman, insidious, subtle, versed in the world, and rich. My sweet apartment near the Champs-Élysées became a center for all sorts of people, musicians, poets, dandies, artists, nobles, where we spoke French and German, Italian, English. I wed Count Navigato, native of Genoa. We went to Rome. He poisoned me, I think. Now, in the Campo Santo, overlooking the sea where young Columbus dreamed new worlds, see what they chiseled. Contessa Navigato implora eterna quiete.
I was the milliner, talked about, lied about, mother of Dora, whose strange disappearance was charged to her rearing. My eye, quick to beauty, saw much besides ribbons, and buckles, and feathers, and leghorns, and felts, to set off sweet faces and dark hair and gold. One thing I will tell you, and one I will ask. The stealers of husbands wear powder and trinkets and fashionable hats. Wives, wear them yourselves. Hats may make divorces, they also prevent them. Well, now let me ask you, if all the children born here in Spoon River had been reared by the county somewhere on a farm, and the fathers and mothers had been given their freedom to live and enjoy, change mates if they'd wished, do you think that Spoon River had been any worse?
He ran away and was gone for a year. When he came home, he told me the silly story of being kidnapped by pirates on Lake Michigan and kept in chains so he could not write me. I pretended to believe it, though I knew very well what he was doing, and that he met the milliner, Miss Williams, now and then when she went to the city to buy goods, as she said. But a promise is a promise, and marriage is marriage, and out of respect for my own character, I refused to be drawn into a divorce by the scheme of a husband who had merely grown tired of his marital vow and duty.
She loved me. Oh, how she loved me. I never had a chance to escape from the day she first saw me. But then after we were married, I thought she might prove her mortality and let me out. Or she might divorce me. But few die, none resign. Then I ran away and was gone a year on a lark. But she never complained. She said all would be well, that I would return, and I did return. I told her that while taking a row in a boat, I had been captured near Van Buren Street by pirates on Lake Michigan, and kept in chains, so I could not write her. She cried and kissed me, and said it was cruel, outrageous, inhuman. I then concluded our marriage was a divine dispensation and could not be dissolved, except by death. I was right.
I know that he told that I snared his soul with a snare which bled him to death, and all the men loved him, and most of the women pitied him. But suppose you're really a lady and have delicate taste, and loathe the smell of whiskey and onions, and the rhythm of Wordsworth's ode runs in your ears, while he goes about from morning till night, repeating bits of that common thing. Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud? And then suppose you're a woman well endowed, and the only man with whom the law and morality permit you to have marital relation is the very man that fills you with disgust. Every time you think of it, while you think of it, every time you see him. That's why I drove him away from home, to live with his dog in a dingy room, back of his office.
Together in this grave lie Benjamin Pantier, attorney at law, and Nig, his dog, constant companion, solace, and friend. Down the grey road, friends, children, men and women, passing one by one out of life, left me till I was alone, with Nig for a partner, bedfellow, comrade in drink. In the morning of life I knew aspiration and saw glory. The she who survives me snared my soul with a snare which bled me to death, till I once, strong of will, lay broken, indifferent, living with Nig in a room back of a dingy office. Under my jawbone is snuggled the bony nose of Nig. Our story is lost in silence. Go by, mad world.
Where is my boy, in what far part of the world? The boy I loved best of all in the school. I, the teacher, the old maid, the virgin heart, who made them all my children. Did I know my boy all right? Thinking of him as spirit aflame, active, ever aspiring? Oh boy, boy, for whom I prayed and prayed in many a watchful hour at night. Do you remember the letter I wrote you of the beautiful love of Christ? And whether you ever took it or not, my boy, wherever you are, work for your soul's sake, that all the clay of you, all of the dross of you, may yield to the fire of you. To the fire is nothing but light, nothing but light.
Well, Emily Sparks, your prayers were not wasted. Your love was not all in vain. I owe whatever I was in life to your hope that would not give me up, to your love that saw me still as good. Dear Emily Sparks, let me tell you the story. I passed the effect of my father and mother. The milliner's daughter made me trouble, and out I went in the world, where I passed through every peril known of wine and woman and joy of life. One night, in a room in the Rue de Vaux, I was drinking wine with a black-eyed coyote, and the tears swam into my eyes. She thought they were amorous tears and smiled, for a thought of her conquest over me, but my soul was 3,000 miles away. In the days when you taught me in Spoon River, and just because you no more could love me, nor pray for me, nor write me letters, the eternal silence of you spoke instead, and the black-eyed coyote took the tears for her, as well as the deceiving kisses I gave her. Somehow, from that hour, I had a new vision. Dear Emily Sparks.
I was only 8 years old, and before I grew up, I knew what it meant. I had no words for it except that I was frightened, and I told my mother that my father got a pistol and would have killed Charlie, who was a big boy, 15 years old, except for his mother. Nevertheless, the story clung to me. But the man who married me, a widower of 35, was a newcomer and never heard it till 2 years after we were married. And then he considered himself cheated. And the village agreed that I was not really a virgin. Well, he deserted me, and I died the following winter.
I lost my patronage in Spoon River from trying to put my mind in the camera to catch the soul of the person. The very best picture I ever took was of Judge Summers, attorney at law. He sat upright and had me pause till he got his cross-eye straight. Then, when he was ready, he said, "All right." And I yelled, "Overruled!" And his eye turned up. And I caught him, just as he used to look when saying, "I accept."
The secret of the stars, gravitation. The secret of the earth, layers of rock. The secret of the soil, to receive seed. The secret of the seed, the germ. The secret of man, the sower. The secret of woman, the soil. My secret, under a mound that you shall never find.
He protested all his life long that newspapers lied about him villainously, that he was not at fault for Minerva's fall, but only tried to help her. Poor soul, so sunk in sin that he could not see that even trying to help her, as he called it, he had broken the law, human and divine. Passers-by, an ancient admonition to you, if your ways would be ways of pleasantness, and all of your pathways peace, love God and keep his commandments.
No other man, unless it was Doc Hill, did more the people in this town than I. And all the weak, the halt, the improvident, and those who could not pay flocked to me. I was good-hearted, easy Dr. Myers. I was healthy, happy, and comfortable fortune, blessed with a conjugal mate, my children raised, all wedded, doing well in the world. And then one night, Minerva, the poetess, came to me in her trouble, crying. I tried to help her out. She died. They indicted me. The newspapers disgraced me. My wife perished of a broken heart. And pneumonia finished me.
You would not believe, would you, that I came from good Welsh stock, that I was pure-blooded, the white trash here, and more of direct lineage than the New Englanders and Virginians of Spoon River. You would not believe that I've been to school and read some books. Saw me only as a run-down man with matted hair and beard and ragged clothes. Sometimes a man's life turns into a cancer from being bruised and continually bruised, and swells into a purplish mass that grows on stalks of corn. Here was I, a carpenter, mirrored in a bog of life, into which I walked, thinking it was a meadow, with a Saturn for a wife, and poor Minerva, my daughter, whom you tormented and drove to death. So I crept like a snail through my days of my life. No more you hear my footsteps in the morning, resounding on the hollow sidewalk, and going to the grocery store for a little cornmeal and a nickel's worth of bacon.
I am Minerva, the village poetess, hooted at, jeered at by the yahoos of the street, for my heavy body, cockeye, and rolling walk. And all the more when Butch Weldy captured me after a brutal hunt. He left me to my fate with Dr. Myers, and I sank into death, growing numb from the feet up, like one stepping deeper and deeper into a stream of ice. Will someone go to the village newspaper and gather into a book the verses I wrote? I thirsted so for love. I hungered so for life.
After I got religion and steadied down, they gave me a job in the cannon works, and every morning I had to fill the tank in the yard with gasoline that fed the blowfires in the sheds to heat up the soldering irons, and I mounted a rickety ladder to do it. One morning, as I stood there pouring, the air grew still and seemed to heave, and I shut up as the tank exploded, and down I came, with both legs broken, and my eyes burned crisp as a couple of eggs. For someone left a blowfire going, and something sucked the flame in the tank. The circuit judge said whoever did it was a fellow servant of mine, and so Old Road Son didn't have to pay me. And I sat down on the witness stand as blind as Jack the Fiddler, saying over and over again, I didn't know him at all.
I was Willie Metcalf. They used to call me Dr. Myers because they said I looked like him, and he was my father, according to Jack McGuire. I lived in the livery stable, sleeping on the floor, side by side, with Roger Bauman's bulldog, or sometimes in a stall. I could crawl between the legs of the wildest horses without getting kicked. We knew each other. On spring days, I tramped through the country to get the feeling, which I sometimes lost, that I was not a separate thing from the earth. I used to lose myself, as if in sleep, by lying with eyes half open in the woods. Sometimes I talked with animals, even toads and snakes, anything that had an eye to look into. Once, I saw a stone in the sunshine trying to turn into jelly. In April days in this cemetery, the dead people gathered all about me and grew still, like a congregation in silent prayer. I never knew whether I was part of the earth with flowers growing in me, or whether I walked. Now I know.
They would have lynched me had I not been secretly hurried away to the jail at Peoria. Yet I was going peacefully home, carrying my jug, a little drunk, when Logan, the marshal, halted me, called me a drunk hound, and shook me, and, when I cursed him for it, struck me with that prohibition-loaded cane. All this before I shot him. They would have hanged me except for this. My lawyer, Kinsey Keene, was helping to land old Thomas Rhodes for wrecking the bank. And the judge was a friend of Rhodes, wanted him to escape, and Kinsey offered to quit on Rhodes for 14 years for me. And the bargain was made. I served my time and learned to read and write.
The Prohibitionists made me town marshal when the saloons were voted out. Because when I was a drinking man, before I joined the church, I killed a Swede at the sawmill near Maple Grove. And they wanted a terrible man. Grim, righteous, strong, courageous, and a hater of saloons and drinkers to keep law and order in the village. And they presented me with a loaded cane, with which I struck Jack McGuire before he drew the gun with which he killed me. The Prohibitionists, they spent their money in vain to hang him. For in a dream I appeared to one of the 12 jurymen and told him the whole secret story. 14 years were enough for killing me.
My mind was a mirror. It saw what it saw, it knew what it knew. In youth, my mind was just a mirror in a rapidly flying car, which catches and loses bits of the landscape. Then in time, great scratches were made on the mirror, letting the outside world come in and letting my inner self look out. For this is the birth of the soul in sorrow, a birth with gains and losses. The mind sees the world as a thing apart, and the soul makes the world at one with itself. A mirror scratched reflects no image, and this is the silence of wisdom.